नमस्कार, मास्क उतारो जी में आप सबका स्वागत है। जी हाँ, आज है मेरे साथ एक योद्धा। मैं उनको योद्धा ही बुलाती हूँ जो अपने धर्म के लिए लड़ाई करते हैं, धर्म को अच्छी तरह समझते हैं और अपने धर्म को अच्छी तरह लोगों को समझा सकते हैं। हमारे धर्म में, जी हाँ, हिंदू धर्म में बहुत त्रुटियां अकॉर्डिंग टू लेफ्टिस्ट लिबरल बहुत त्रुटियां पाई जाती हैं। तो किस तरीके से ये जो योद्धा हैं, वो लोगों का ये जो जो भी भ्रम है उसको दूर दूर करती हैं और बहुत अच्छी लड़ाई करती हैं। जी हाँ, बिना वायलेंट हुए लड़ाई करती हैं। और इसके लिए इन्होंने काफी प्राइस भी पे करी है, बिग प्राइस शी इज पेड फॉर इट, बट इट्स ओके। शी इज अ ब्रेव, लाइक आई सेड, शी इज अ योद्धा। बहुत ब्रेव है और आज की नारी है। एंड तो किसी से डरने वाली नहीं है और सच्चाई की हमेशा जीत होती है, तो वो सच्चाई के लिए लड़ती हैं। सो आज का मेरा इंटरव्यू है, जी हाँ, रश्मि सामंत जी के साथ। ये एक ह्यूमन राइट्स एक्टिविस्ट हैं एंड फॉर्मर ग्रेजुएट रेजिडेंट एट यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ ऑक्सफोर्ड हैं एंड फॉर्मर स्टाफर एट हाउस ऑफ कॉमन्स। हाय रश्मि।
Hi, Namaste Payal ji, and thank you so much for having
नमस्कार।
me.
It's an honor for me too, and I'm so proud of being Hindu because of you all and our हमारा धर्म भी ऐसा है कि हम लोग को उसके लिए बहुत ही गौरव महसूस करना चाहिए। और जिस तरीके से आप अकेली, एक टाइम पे तो अकेली थी, बाद में लोगों ने आपका साथ दिया, आप बहुत लड़ी हैं। तो आज हम उसके बारे में बात करते हैं। पहले आप रश्मि मुझे ये बताएं कि व्हाट हैपेंड विद यू इन यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ ऑक्सफोर्ड, व्हाट हैपेंड?
So I think I've told this story many times, but ऐसा था कि मैं एक नॉर्मल रेगुलर स्टूडेंट थी ऑक्सफोर्ड में एंड मैं अपनी मास्टर्स परस्यू कर रही थी। हमारा एक स्टूडेंट यूनियन है ऑक्सफोर्ड का जो कि बहुत ही पुराना है, बहुत ही प्रेस्टिजियस है और इसकी इलेक्शन आने वाली थी। इससे पहले मैंने काफी कैंपस पॉलिटिक्स में पार्ट लिया है। भारत में भी जब मैं अपनी इंजीनियरिंग कर रही थी तब भी मैं अपनी छात्र संघ की एक इलेक्टेड लीडर थी। तो आई थॉट कि व्हाई नॉट गिव इट अ चांस, तो आई स्टूड फॉर प्रेसिडेंट एंड आई वन एंड आई वाज द फर्स्ट इंडियन प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द ऑक्सफोर्ड स्टूडेंट्स यूनियन व्हिच वाज प्रीटी ह्यूज. And it was one of the biggest elections with the massive turnout, and I got one of the it was a landslide victory with four other contestants, and it was great all in all. बट नॉर्मली जो होता है वही हुआ, तो मेरी सोशल मीडिया हिस्ट्री को एक्सकवेट करने की कोशिश की और जब वहां पे कुछ नहीं मिला तो मेरी मम्मी की फेसबुक स्टॉक करने लग गए और ये वो भी यूनिवर्सिटी के प्रोफेसर्स वो भी ये सब हरकतें करने. हाँ हाँ, they all got involved. It was pretty nasty to be honest, and something you don't see coming because as a young person you expect the world to be very ideal because you grow up with all these books and with all these movies and all these textbook stories where everything is fair, everything's black and white, the good guys are always on the right side, nothing bad ever happens to them, they always get justice, the bad guys are always put away. So you come up with a lot of idealism, especially when you're 22, 23 years old. I was 22 at that point. So I think I was very sort of ideal thinking, अरे मैंने तो कभी कोई गलती नहीं की है. So you would never expect this kind of an attack, some sort of harassment to come your way just because there are many stereotypes and that you're vilified in a certain way, that your community has been consistently vilified in a certain way for centuries now. You don't realize this until you kind of get out of your homes and into these environments where these situations are very hyperbolic and it can it can explode in no time. तो यही हुआ. तो जब तक मैं एक रेगुलर स्टूडेंट थी तो किसी को कोई दिक्कत नहीं थी. जब मैं उनकी प्रेसिडेंट बन गई तो सडनली मेरा बैकग्राउंड, मेरा हिस्ट्री, मेरी अपब्रिंगिंग, मेरी आइडेंटिटी एक प्रॉब्लम बन गई. ये जो लेफ्टिस्ट कहते रहते हैं कि हमारी आइडेंटिटी जितनी भी मतलब माइक्रो हो, हमें 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 हमारे हक मिलने चाहिए, बट जबकि एक हिंदू की बात आती है तो सारे हक मार दिए जाते हैं. तो इट्स जस्ट सिलेक्टिव काइंड ऑफ एप्लीकेशन ऑफ these definitions and all of that. So I think I was quite taken aback by what happened. But then धीरे धीरे I got to know कि क्या चल रहा है really. I come from a science background. I'm an engineer with a master's in engineering. This is something that people don't know. लोगों को लगता है कि मैंने शायद law किया हुआ हो, history किया है या social science या कुछ ऐसा background है. ऐसा तो कुछ नहीं है. So, and I was also the first person sort of from this background to become president. Usually सारे social sciences के लोग इन चीजों में involved रहते हैं. तो वो भी काफी मेरे लिए एक नया एक्सपीरियंस था कि ये लोग कैसे चीजों को डिफाइन करते हैं और कैसे कैंपस एक्टिविज्म को थोड़ा ऐसे विट्रियोलिक बना देते हैं. तो वो एक था, एक लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस था. And I'm never someone who will take accusations lying down. कोई कुछ भी कहे तो I'm not going to take it. And I think nobody should, and especially 21st century women shouldn't. I think it was so ironic क्योंकि I'm here, the first Indian woman to take office and all that, and people are accusing me of patriarchy. That was like the funniest thing that has ever happened. And just because Hindus are stereotyped in certain ways, people just buy these definitions. And then they just stick it on you कि भाई तुम पेट्रियार्कल हो. मतलब देखो एक महिला बनी है आपकी प्रेसिडेंट, आप कैसे इस चीज को पेट्रियार्कल कह सकते हो? So there were all of these things, and eventually I also found a massive community. I think there are different kinds of community that you find. There's a community that you're born into, but there's also this community that you form अपने shared experiences के basis पे. तो मुझे लगा कि by the end of the day यही सबसे ज्यादा रेजोनेट हुआ कि वहां बाहर हमारे कम्युनिटी में ऐसे बहुत लोग हैं जिनके साथ ऐसे हुआ है अपने पर्सनल लाइफ में. हालांकि एक प्रेसिडेंसी ना हो उस सिचुएशन में, बट उनके वर्क प्लेस में हो, बाहर या कहीं पे भी कुछ ना कुछ उनके साथ ऐसी हरकतें हुई होंगी, ऐसे इंसिडेंट्स हुए होंगे. बट कभी कोई भी इसके बारे में खुल के बात नहीं करते हैं क्योंकि आउट ऑफ फियर ऑफ जजमेंट, और इतने स्टीरियोटाइप्स ऑलरेडी बाहर है कि कौन मानेगा आपकी कहानी को. आजकल आप न्यूज मीडिया में ही देख सकते हो कि how narratives are shaped and how the truth doesn't matter. वहां पे एक incriminating video भी आप दिखा दो, it doesn't matter. उनको जो छापना होता है वो वही छापते हैं, जिसकी वजह से हिंदू काफी अपने स्टोरीज को दबा के रखते हैं. पर जब मैंने अपनी स्टोरी के बारे में खुल के बात करना शुरू किया तो उन सबको लगा कि हम तो अपनी कहानी कह नहीं पाए, पर ये बेचारी कह रही है तो हम इसका सपोर्ट करेंगे. तो वहीं से सबसे ज्यादा सपोर्ट मिला. ये एक शेयर्ड एक्सपीरियंस, एक शेयर्ड लिव्ड एक्सपीरियंस जिनका भी था. एंड आई एम हैप्पी कि वो एक कम्युनिटी है, एंड आजकल ज्यादा लोग इसके बारे में खुल के बात कर पा रहे हैं. और मेरी तो यही इच्छा होगी कि आगे भी ज्यादा लोग इसके बारे में खुल के बात करें और इस चीज को ज्यादा टाइप कास्ट करके. एक हिंदू का एक डेफिनेटिव ये है कि sometimes if something wrong happens, हम सिर्फ we put our heads down and then we work very hard and then we become successful in life. We stuff these things into corners of our mind. But I think as equal citizens of this world, we deserve every justice, every fairness and everything more. तो हमें वो हक अपना लेना चाहिए.
अब जैसे रश्मि, आप मुझे ये बताएं that did you resign from the post and were you reinstated or what happened this thing?
So I resigned from the post after a few days, after all of these things were happening, after a few weeks actually. But then there was there was an internal investigation which took really long. So all of that happened and I was vindicated and all of that. So that happened, but it was time for me to graduate as well. So it's not like I'm going to stay on campus forever to be their president. But it's good because all's well that ends well. So there was a fact-based internal investigation and they were able to kind of separate all of the accusations and be like, no, you're just plainly bullying and harassing this girl. So that we were able to clear up. And I'm sure that this precedent will stop further incidents from happening with another Rashmi who might just go study at Oxford or choose to be their president.
So proud of you, Rashmi. So proud of you. And your parents must be so proud of you.
Thank you.
I always say that, mothers, I'm not saying fathers don't play an important role, but mothers mainly play a very important role in the upbringing of the girl especially. तो बहुत फर्क पड़ता है कि आपकी थिंकिंग अगर मदर जरा भी कंजर्वेटिव होती है या शी इज नॉट अ गो गेटर, तो वो बच्चों को भी ऐसे, तो क्रेडिट गोज टू योर मॉम टू. आज की नारी, हाँ बिल्कुल। अच्छा, रश्मि आप मुझे ये बताओ कि ये हुआ डिसमेंटलिंग हिंदुत्व ग्लोबली, है ये हुआ, एंड उसमें मैंने एक नोटिस किया कि suddenly I saw on spaces and on clubhouse, on Facebook, YouTube, बहुत सारे प्लेटफॉर्म्स ऐसे थे, इवन लोगों ने लाइव भी करा और डिबेट्स भी हुए इसके बारे में, ये सब करके बहुत हिंदूज आगे आ गए. And suddenly I saw people, there were some Hindus who's, that Hindutva thing, or, Hindu was lying dormant somewhere. तो वो बहुत ही ज्यादा सेक्युलर टाइप थे वो करके, तो कहीं ना कहीं आई थिंक उनकी भी फीलिंग्स हर्ट हुई, एंड दे आल्सो स्टार्टेड प्रोटेस्टिंग अगेंस्ट इट, एंड दे वर हर्ट टू. सो आपका क्या, उसमें आपने क्या रोल प्ले किया, ये जो था इस ये पूरा डिसमेंटलिंग हिंदुत्व?
I think ever since my sort of incident and episode, I've been very actively voicing my opinions on such issues. और जब भी कोई ऐसी incidents होती हैं या ऐसे events होते हैं, तो I usually use my platform to speak about it. I definitely participated in a lot of podcasts and a lot of debates to kind of put my view. But generally I just feel that whitewashing, vilification, ये सब जो stereotypical चीजों को करना होता है, these efforts are well funded by institutions. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये कोई ऐसे आ गया और इसको कर रहा है. It's very systemic और ये बहुत होता है और बहुत सालों से ये होता आ रहा है. तो आई एम हैप्पी कि फाइनली हम इसके खिलाफ बात करने की हिम्मत जुड़ा पा रहे हैं एज अ कम्युनिटी, क्योंकि इससे पहले तो हम नाराज होते थे इसके बारे में, शायद चाय बिस्कुट पे इसके बारे में बात करते थे और फिर भूल जाते थे. पर इस बार हमने एक्टिवली इसका विरोध किया और कहा कि नहीं, दिस इज हाउ वी डिफाइन आवर आइडेंटिटी एंड वी डू नॉट गिव दिस अथॉरिटी टू एनीबडी एल्स. तो एक फॉरेन इंस्टीट्यूशन या एक वेस्टर्न इंस्टीट्यूशन अपने लेंस से इस सिचुएशन को नहीं नाप सकता है, बिकॉज ऑल रोड्स डू नॉट लीड टू जेरूसलम, सो दे कैन नॉट डिफाइन आवर रिलीजन एंड आवर वे ऑफ लाइफ विद देयर व्यू पॉइंट. So I think it's finally time that we are able to assert ourselves, and I'm happy that I was able to do something in my own little way. But I think it's generally कि सारी community finally साथ आ रही है. It's a long journey because I think we need to unite more, we need to consolidate more. But we've started somewhere, and I'm happy that it's taking more formative shape.
Okay. I'm feeling so nice talking to you, Rashmi. It's really very nice, and really it's an honor for me कि आप इंटरव्यू के लिए तैयार हो गई. मैंने आपको एक मैसेज
The honor is all mine.
अच्छा, अब आप मुझे एक बात बताओ, ये जैसे होता है हमेशा ये बोलते रहते हैं कि हिंदूज ये कर रहे हैं, हिंदूज वो कर रहे हैं, जैसे इन्होंने ये डिसमेंटलिंग वाला भी करा. आप मुझे एक बात बताओ, पाकिस्तान में इतने हिंदूज कितने, 11% थे, 1% बच गए, बांग्लादेश में तो अब हार्डली कोई बचे हैं, और तो फिर ये अफगानिस्तान से सिख्स भी निकल आए हैं, अब सभी ये सारी कंट्रीज में हिंदूज थे और सब निकल आए. बट हाउ कम nobody is talking about it? How come, but everybody's quiet about it, and they're not, it's not even mentioned anywhere about the Hindu killings, or like what we see on, these videos keep coming and some articles keep coming. Thode thode aate rehte hain that girls are being converted, they're raped, or they're kidnapped, and yahan mare jate hain kai Hindus. So what do you think about it?
I feel that the world is not ideal. So we think that, all these institutions are ideal. Media भी बहुत ideal है. जो भी गलत होता है उसे report करता है. No, it is not ideal. It's a business. And it's in the business of supporting narratives that are well funded. Unfortunately, the Hindu plight is not well funded. And it's not, commercially viable for them to be platforming these things. And they get a lot of money to sort of platform the other stories. So we need to put that into perspective कि by the end of the day ये सब चीजें ideal नहीं है, सब चीजें black and white नहीं है. Media is not there out there just to report things as they happen. So there is a lot of laced intention behind everything that happens, and we do need to realize that. And as a community, when you're being persecuted, I think हमारा role ये है कि हम खुद से कितना इसके बारे में अवेयरनेस क्रिएट कर रहे हैं. एवरी टाइम देयर वाज दिस केस विद लावण्या वेरी रिसेंटली, where she was a part of a Christian missionary school and she was being forcefully converted and there's a dying declaration. But due to the sort of institutional bias in the Tamil Nadu government and some sort of a mix up with the police as well, there has been no justice. But as the Hindu community, we haven't been able to get out on the streets and mobilize as much as it was required. So I think that is also there. Initially, when my own story broke, nobody was ready to platform my story of things. The mainstream media was not willing to do it. But then the public pressure grew so much that they had to platform it. So I think it's up to us as a community to pressurize these institutions to actually do the right thing rather than wait, in a rhetorical way कि नहीं अच्छे लोगों के साथ अच्छा होता है. Yes, that is a factor. I think truth always wins. अच्छे लोगों के साथ अच्छा होता है. Karma, these are all right things. But unless we do our karma, unless we set things into motion, things are not going to happen. I only got justice because I fought, but it helped to have truth on my side.
Right.
So just having the truth on your side, that doesn't help. You need to do something about it as well. So I think even Bhagavad Gita is all about, it's all about your karma, that you have to do your actions as well for the results to be out there. So yeah.
अब हम बात करते हैं about this hijab controversy. I think जो अभी आपने एक word use किया कि public pressure. You think somewhere the whole thing about hijab, it awakened Hindus and कहीं public pressure था, that's why the government intervened and then government also.
I'm from Udupi, by the way, and I'm sitting.
I know that. That's why I'm asking you. I know you're from Udupi. I was coming to that, yeah.
So I think कि हिजाब तो यहाँ पे कोई एक इशू था नहीं to begin with. यहाँ पे तो बहुत स्ट्रिक्ट यूनिफॉर्म कोड है, लड़कियों को 2 चोटियां बना के कॉलेज जाना पड़ता है और शॉल को इधर पिन करो, ये सब चीजें हैं. यहाँ पे स्ट्रिक्ट यूनिफॉर्म है. और जिस कॉलेज में ये इशू हुआ वहां पे भी 23 साल से ही आता रहा है सिस्टम यूनिफॉर्म का. तो ये सडनली कैसे ये कंट्रोवर्सी चालू हुआ, इसके लिए फंड्स कहाँ से मिले, बिकॉज द लॉयर्स एंड एवरीथिंग, इट वाज अ वेरी वेल फंडेड सॉर्ट ऑफ अ कैंपेन. एंड जो भी इसमें पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे थे, तो आई थिंक देयर वाज अ स्टार एज वेल, मुस्कान खान. शी वाज रिवॉर्डेड 5 lakhs the next day for doing what she did, and it was a well funded sort of
called a Sherni. She was called a Sherni.
Yeah, and it was very well funded, something of the scale that even I cannot imagine, because my issue was fairly international. It was on a massive scale, but even then, like, I cannot imagine the resources that these people have. So it does raise a lot of questions about manufactured protests to create communal disharmony, to manipulate elections, to create rifts within society, to start these movements. So I think there is definitely an element of that, because I've not seen anything as well funded as this one has been on the ground. So yeah, I would like to think of it as a manufactured controversy, but because there has been no precedent of such an issue ever here. I've studied here, I've gone to college, I've had friends who are Muslims, girls who come from Muslim families, and this has never been a debatable topic or anything. Everybody just accepted that जब तक स्कूल जाते हो तो सबको यूनिफॉर्म पहनना होता है, और स्कूल के बाहर जो करते हो वो आपकी मर्जी है. तो that has always been the sort of a preset. So yeah, and I think the community has to brace for more such, controversies in the future, and we need to be ready with what is right and what is not. I think hijab was something which was, solved very well by the Karnataka High Court, and everybody should respect its decision or appeal in the Supreme Court. But what we saw here was that people took to the streets, they called for a ban. That is not the way to go, and sort of hamper businesses, especially so after COVID. It's not the way to go, and there are definitely elements of communal disharmony.
पर आपको लगा कि the chief minister and the BJP government was sleeping otherwise, like they were not reacting to it, and suddenly जब public का pressure पड़ा तो उनको भी लगा कि हाँ जो हो रहा है वो गलत हो रहा है. पब्लिक तो दैट मीन्स अगर हिंदू जागेगा, हिंदू लड़ेगा सही बात के लिए, तो फिर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन भी एक्टिव हो जाता है फिर समय।
I think, yeah, maybe the administration, maybe it was intimidated, it was sort of activated because of the public pressure. But I think by the end of the day, जो result आया वो तो judiciary के हाथ में ही
क्या
था,
हाथ से
तो
है,
it
हाँ।
was a fair process, I feel. So I do have my opinions about, sort of public pressure as well. I feel it is necessary to create awareness, but it shouldn't overtake judiciary process. वरना तो हर जगह से ऐसे लगेगा कि इंटरनेट पे ही डिसीजंस हो रहे हैं चीजों को लेके, तो there should be a balance. But I'm sure कि there needs to be more mobilization to create awareness, because that is definitely lacking within our community, and that is one thing we got right during the hijab controversy.
अब जैसे लाइक इफ यू आर प्लानिंग टू गो टू यूके, और अगर आपकी जैसी लड़कियां हैं जो यू नो ज्यादा हिंदू हैं, और वो अपनी बात को बोलना चाहती हैं और वो असर्ट करती हैं अपनी बात को, इतना एंटी सेमिटिज्म है इन यूके, तो आपको कैसे लगता है कि कैसे हैंडल होगा ये? यूके में बहुत ज्यादा है ये।
I think that we shouldn't be, especially young people, shouldn't be made to feel guilty about their spirituality.
हम्म।
So that is one thing, and I think it's the onus is on the community and not on the young people. So it is not their burden to carry. You have to hide your things, or you should hide being a Hindu or something. So I think the onus is on the community, and we as the broader Hindu community can definitely support these girls, support these youngsters when they go out, and if there's any issue, because I always keep my chats open for anybody who would want to report anything that happened with them, so that I can help them amplify and get them a platform. So I think it's not on the young people to change, but it's on the broader community to support them and make them feel empowered, in whatever choice they make.
अच्छा ना, Jews, they did not let the world forget about what happened to them. फिर हम हिंदूज क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे हैं? इसके क्या व्यूज हैं आपके इसके बारे
I definitely do agree there that we've done a very bad job of recording हमारे साथ जो भी नाइंसाफी हुई है, हमने इसको अच्छे से रिकॉर्ड नहीं किया है। जो इस्लामिक पीरियड में हुए थे, इसका भी कोई सही रिकॉर्ड नहीं है,
में? नहीं
जबकि
है।
we've had great documentation techniques right up from the Vedas, Upanishads, and everything, but we kind of failed to do so in that particular timeline. I think the Maharani of Vijayanagara Empire has recorded a few things about the Islamic period. She's done some really great work. But I think it's up to our generation to kind of revive that, to see why these things, because there's still a lot of archaeological evidence, and there are still a few scriptures that can be salvaged from those times. So you see these up and coming great historians like Vikram Sampath, you see J.S.I. Deepak writing
या
great. I think so. It's up to us to record these things. And I just finished writing a first person account of what really happened to me, because I really wanted to leave a record of like everything from the beginning to the end, because I think an interview cannot really encompass all the details of
या ट्रू
how
ट्रू।
in precision how things worked, and how there were so many different elements working in so many different directions. So I've compiled that in my own way. So I think we should do that. We should do more recording, rewriting, and the Kashmir Files is a great is example of something like that we've been able to achieve. But for so many years we weren't able to put together a movie like that. And to think of it, the entire Bollywood kind of discouraged that film, but we as a community, we went to watch and we encouraged it, and then it was a success. I think that is more and more required. We need to encourage more people who record these things and generally do the same ourselves. If we do have a story to tell, I think we should definitely write it down and get it published.
Okay. And Rashmi, do you still face some problems and difficulties, or has it, like, it's over now, or do you still get trolled for it, or do you still get that negativity from, or are people still nasty with you? What is it? What happens after this whole thing? Is it still
I think it,
continuing, or
yeah,
what's happened?
I don't think it will stop. That's the thing, that's this expectation that you should stop having, because nasty people, they don't care about what's right, what's wrong, or what's a judicial, decision. They conform to their biases and stereotypes very deeply. So you can't change the way that they think or they perceive the world. And there are many actors, many, I think, prominent people in India as well who keep coming after me from time to time. But I think it's all right. It's a part and parcel of this space that I'm in, and I think I need to have the power to stomach it if I am to if I am to continue with the work that I do. So I think I've just learned to adapt and be okay with these kinds of things and not take it to heart every time.
Rashmi, tell me about this word, Islamophobia or Islamophobia. ये क्यों यूज हो रहा है इतना? What is the agenda behind it?
I think that's a very, very complicated issue to broach, and to take hours and hours of like where it started and where it's going. At least if I were to speak, I think there are lots of context to this as well. So there's the American context and then there's the Indian context. I think it kind of came up in the American context post the bombing of the Twin Towers. So it's sort of started from there, and then now it's just being used everywhere. You can see a lot of mainstream usage as well, and it is also being unfairly used in certain spaces. For instance, telling the Kashmiri Pandit plight in the Kashmir files was considered Islamophobia. But I mean, facts cannot be phobic to any religion. I mean, I think facts are fact. But maybe some sort of unprovoked and racial discrimination, maybe that's a sort of phobia. But Kashmir files is definitely not Islamophobia. A Nobel laureate, in fact, who was imprisoned and kept as a slave by the ISIS, she's actually stopped from telling her stories these days. In many platforms are deplatforming her because they feel that her story furthers Islamophobia. But I think that's not true, because her lived experience is very crucial to our society to acknowledge how we are failing and how we need to go forward. So I think the misuse of the word Islamophobia really needs to stop.
You think it's basically that justifying what is happening all around us? So is it like a way of justifying?
I cannot say 100%, but 80%, yes. It's trying to, rather justify and whitewash crimes than actually address real problems which, upstanding Muslim citizens might face. So I think it's just 20% that and 80% just whitewashing. Because, I mean, calling Kashmir files Islamophobic is just whitewashing the Kashmiri Hindu plight and nothing else. And it is a gross misuse of the word. So I think that is happening a lot more than it should happen. 80% of the time, it's what's happening right now.
And you think Hindu जाग रहा है कि जाग चुका है?
I think we're in the sort of space between जाग रहा है and जाग चुका है.
चुका है? Okay. So,
Still a little bit.
बहुत लंबी लड़ाई है.
लंबी लड़ाई है.
अब अगर आपके जैसे लोग होंगे तो हम कामयाब होंगे अपने उसमें. Thank you so much, Rashmi.
Thank you, Payal ji.
Great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Bye.